Hello again. Mark Robertson here again, talking about my book, Carrying Lawn Chairs. And you can get it on Amazon, just under $10 paperback, $2.99 ebook version. And it's largely about parents, youth sports, and the parent-child dynamic, and many other subjects as well, related areas. But the gist of it talks about, especially the first part, talks about parents and youth sports and how I think the youth sports scene, organized youth sports scene, leaves a lot to be desired these days. And I actually am against very young kids being involved in organized youth sports. I wouldn't start anyone in organized sports before 10, if maybe even 12. Today's chapter, it's called Nation and World. And when I was growing up, the Olympics were a huge deal in the old Soviet Union and East Germany. These countries were communist countries back then, before the fall of communism in the late 80s, early 90s. And these countries were deplorable. They were communist countries. The people were living in squalor, but their Olympic teams were great. They had really strong teams. I remember in 1980, the U.S. hockey team beat the dreaded Soviet Union team. It was a major upset, especially after they had invaded, I believe it was Afghanistan. And it was great pride in the U.S. for beating the vaunted Soviet Union hockey team. And they had all these great teams, speed skaters, gymnasts. I think the Winter Olympics seemed to even be stronger in the summer, but the summer was strong as well. And East Germany did too. I remember they had all these East German female skaters and swimmers and things like this. And they were very strong. But their countries were a mess. They were totalitarian. The people lived in fear and squalor and crime. And they tried to escape. They'd be murdered, shot by guards, but yet they had a great Olympic team. And you can also see that even somewhat today in a less troublesome situation. Poor countries, South America, Africa, even some areas in Europe. The soccer is such a huge sport. In these countries in South America, it's like their religion. And they go to the World Cup or whatever, and their countries are in disarray and in chaos. They're not necessarily communist. Most of them are largely socialist, but soccer is everything. And these people live for soccer, and it's how they uplift their spirit from their squalorless life because of the situations in the country, the systems in the country. And the reason I'm bringing all this up, in a lesser degree, that seems to be the youth sports scene these days in a lot of ways. Parents use youth sports, especially all ages, actually young, even starting young, to lift their spirits, to lift their self-worth. I mean, why else do people flock to games watching 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds play sports? And they're so into it, and they're so on the edge of their seats. And these kids, they have to be good so they can uplift their parents and, become high school athletes and college athletes and maybe even pro athletes someday. And it's the same kind of reasoning that these parents use on a much smaller scale than these countries use to uplift themselves. Their lives might be in disarray, and I'm not saying all parents who put their kids in youth sports have messed up lives or their lives are in disarray or in chaos. But the degrees, there's all different sorts of degrees of it. And in many cases, it's all about lifting the self-worth of the parents. And this can't be good for the kids. The kids instinctively know this. I mean, they put them in sports. What are they thinking when they're out on the field? Their parents, there are all these people in the stands yelling and screaming and do this and do that. Especially the young ones, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, boys and girls. What is going on here? The kids aren't having any fun. It's just a chaotic, dysfunctional scene. And it's in the nature of the human being, whether it's large countries or it's the local neighborhood youth, organized youth sports field or sports venue. Parents use sports to uplift their spirits. And in other words, this is very blunt and brutal, but they are using their kids to uplift their spirits, to uplift their self-worth. And they think they have good intentions, and they do, for the most part, have good intentions. But there are so many motivations going on, and that is no doubt one of them. Thank you for watching in again today, and we will see you soon for another chapter of Carrying Lawn Chairs that you can get on Amazon. Thank you very much.